Hey, it's Sela Social Studies.
Hey guys, welcome back to Sheila Social Studies. Today we're going to be talking about the truth of urban life, and I think you might have been able to catch some of that truth when we covered the second round of immigration, and hopefully so far a little bit during the third round of immigration. But there's something that I want to tell you first before we go into the truth of urban life. I want to go over what America looked like to other nations during the time of our third wave of immigration. We call this time, well, actually, this third wave of immigration lines up with a time in American history called the Gilded Age. And something that is gilded just means that it's covered in gold or gold leafed. And it's this age, it was the term Gilded Age was coined by Mark Twain. But when other nations looked at the United States, this is what they saw. They saw houses like this, Andrew Carnegie's house, the inside of his houses right here. They have multiple houses. These are the robber barons or captains of industry, however you want to call them. And we'll go over that when we cover the actual gilded side, the Gilded Age, what's coming up. But we have a whole bunch of other houses. You have the John D. Rockefeller houses. I mean, look how many houses this guy has. He has a whole lot of houses. Then you have the inside of his houses here. I mean, these things are beautiful. Gold gild everywhere. And then you have the Vanderbilt houses. We have one right in our state. The Biltmore is a Vanderbilt house, and you can go visit it. And it gets very nice at Christmas time. It's a little expensive, but it gets very nice at Christmas time, and it's pretty much nice year round. I mean, these houses are gigantic. You have another Vanderbilt house. You have the Henry Ford estate on top. Currently, you have the Edsel Ford estate on the bottom. You have the Sarah Winchester house of Winchester Firearms. And this house is very strange on the inside. You'll see a couple of instances of things that don't make sense, like the top right has the door to nowhere, and then you have stairs on the bottom left which go absolutely nowhere. They just kind of run into a wall. So there's a lot of people who had a lot of money during the Gilded Age or this third round of immigration, but the vast majority of people living in the United States, that was just not the case. Your robber barons, your captains of industry, they had money, but most people did not. So what's the truth about urban life? When the late 19th and early 20th century immigrants and American citizens contemplated moving quickly into these growing urban playgrounds, they dreamed of what they saw in the movies and these houses, movie theaters, bright lights, romance, trolleys, skyscrapers, and all the night action was what future urbanites dreamed of. While many middle and upper class Americans were able to experience many of the upsides of urban living, many of the poorer urban dwellers were not so lucky. American citizens were filled with slums, crime, pollution, filth, overcrowding, and disease. That's what all of these cities were filled with. These words are what truly describe the reality of what life like was for the majority of urban dwellers, poor immigrant Americans. So with so many poor immigrants and rural Americans moving into the cities of Northern America, the housing authority needed to find a way to fit the maximum number of people in the minimum amount of space. Skyscrapers adorn the cityscape, attracting thousands at a time, providing dreams of life in the crown jewels of city. The reality is that the urban poor could only afford to live in the buildings that were packed close together and were more like a dirty old stone than a crown jewel, the tenement buildings. In the late 1870s, James Ware won a contest to design a building that was the most efficient for mass housing units. Ware designed a plan for a building named a Dumbbell Tenement. Now, if you've been to the gym before, you can probably easily describe what a dumbbell looks like. The building was designed like a dumbbell. The structure was thinner in the middle and expanded outwards on both ends. Dumbbell tenements were able to be built on 25-foot wide by 100-foot-long lots and built side by side and front and back. Each floor was divided into 4 apartments with a shared common area with running water. On one side, each unit consisted of 2 bedrooms, a living room, and a parlor. On the other, each unit contained 1 bedroom, a living room, and a parlor. Neither unit contained a bathroom. Tenants were required to go down to a central outhouse in the courtyard that would overflow in heavy rains or use a chamber pot. The chamber pot was that ceramic bowl that was usually kept under the bed that a tenant would do their business in and then throw the contents out the window below to the streets, hopefully not on some unsuspecting traveler of the streets. There were windows in some of the rooms, but airflow was limited. If a family opened their windows in one building, they could sometimes shake hands with the tenants from the other. Many tenements were built with a vent system that ran up the outside of the building, but it was usually ineffective due to the amounts of garbage filling the vents. With the quick increase of immigrants to cities, many tenement complexes became slums or overcrowded urban streets or districts inhabited by very poor people. Tenement buildings were frequently jam-packed with multiple families, sometimes numbering in the 20s. Many times, families would rent out one or both of their living rooms or parlors to strangers to help pay for the rent. Many families would turn their rooms into workrooms to work from home. Tenements were so tightly packed that fires would easily spread from one unit to another and from one tenement building to another. The atmospheres of tenement buildings could have been described as disgusting, crowded, dirty, and near unlivable. The massive overcrowding and close proximities of tenement buildings led to widespread disease. Cholera, yellow fever, and tuberculosis epidemics swept through the tenements and the slums on a regular basis. Infants suffered the most, with a 25% of babies that were born in the late 19th century dying before they reached even 1 year old. What else was going on in the cities? Well, you had a couple of big major issues in the cities. 19th century cities were primarily disgusting. The air was polluted with filth, and the streets stank, the rivers stank, the people stank, and overall, life stank. We discussed how urban dwellers were required to use the bathroom in a central outhouse in a country yard or a courtyard. When heavy rains drenched the area, the cesspools would overflow into the streets, basements, and rivers. Sewage pipes would drain waste directly into rivers and streams that were most often used as water sources to drink. There was no organized trash collecting system, so trash would pile high on the streets. Even dead horses would lie motionless in the streets, waiting for kids to play on it and the rats to consume it. The 20th century would bring about improved sewers and sanitation systems, but cities were still far from sanitary. With so many immigrants moving into the city on a daily basis, it was very easy to become just a face in the crowd. So many of the urban population was living in poverty, and poverty often breeds crime. Many immigrants worked at unskilled factory jobs that provided little pay, and when that was not enough, desperate people would resort to theft or violence to put food on the table. Many young boys who were tired of working long hours in the factories for almost no pay would sometimes roam the streets and join gangs, aching for something exciting to do or to gain a meal here or there. Many of the youth in the slums were carted off to jail on a daily basis. In the slums, alcoholism and prostitution were widespread. One provided a false sense of escaping their dreaded life, and the other provided additional income for the family. Gamblers would gamble their life savings away with the dream of getting rich quick. Many times police departments were so understaffed that those were breaking the law with some extra funds were able to buy their way out of trouble. Not everyone who lived in the cities were living the life of the destitute, but the vast majority were. The glamour was there for the wealthy, but the gloom was there for the average city dweller. The rich oftentimes lived next door to the poor. Two different worlds living side by side. That was exposed in a photographic book called How the Other Half Lives by reformer Jacob Riis. As the 20th century began, reformers like Riis attacked the cities and caused change that continues today. I'll see you next time.